pain. Dreams of stars, now a faint refrain. Coffee brews and thoughts collide in this early morning ride. Wake up world, let's start the day. Insight flows in a bright array. Questions dance like morning dew. In this space, it's me and you. Coffee chats with Melissa. Every cup was a whisper. Conversations open doors. Spilling thoughts forevermore. Ideas bubble crisp and bright. Words take flight in morning light. Consult the heart, make it sing. New perspectives on each wing. Another cup of cheer. Every thought becomes so clear. Frosty tunes and bubbling streams. Waking up to brand new dreams. Coffee chats with Melissa. Every cup was a whisper. Conversation.
Well, happy Saturday, guys. It is 6:04 a.m. in the Pacific Northwest. It's freaking raining and I'm loving it. I know I'm not supposed to say that out loud because there's this unspoken rule up here that we're not supposed to love the rain. But this Arizona girl absolutely adores it and moved here just for that purpose. And so, hi. I'm excited it's raining outside. My name is Melissa Ann Houston. I am the cultivator of dreams and motivator of human capital. And what that means is I help people like you figure out what they want to be when they grow up, maybe their next steps of action. We get clear. I hold you accountable. We rinse, repeat. We do the work. But that's what I do now. Let me tell you a little bit about how I got here. I am a lady who was born of sales. And I mean that in my DNA, it is implemented, it's structured, it has been passed down through the generations. My great-grandfather is the first that comes to mind. He worked as a car salesman, and he was so great at what he did in Detroit, he got to pick his car off of the factory line. All of my uncles growing up, they followed his path. They were really great at what they did. Top salespeople. My mother was a waitress, but she was constantly on the upsell, right? If you've ever worked in retail or if you've worked in a restaurant, you know adding those extra pieces really helps for that final sale to be better, right? So, can I get you started with an appetizer? Can I finish you off with a dessert? What do you guys have any room to take something home? It was built in. I watched it. I lived it. I breathed it. Um, then my mother, in all her wisdom, helped me find my first job, which was door to door sales. I used to knock on your door and ask you if you'd like to subscribe to our local newspaper. And if I could get 6 sales in an evening, I got a certificate for $50 towards my education. That is where this chaos was created. That is where I started. And the reality is, what I love about where I began was I had to learn how to say accept a no first. I mean, no is the first answer. You go to somebody's house and knock on their door without permission. Very rarely are they going to welcome you in with excitement to buy whatever you're selling. Am I right? I mean, when's the last time you did that? Did you welcome them in? Did you buy the knives? Did you let them clean your carpets? Did you buy the makeup? There's still people out there doing it, and kudos to them, because that is the hardest job I've ever had. Being outside, taking the no, having 10 steps before the next yes is impossible, and turning it around. Now, I say all of that to say I'm a unique creature, right? I come from a sales background. Everything that I've ever done in my career, I've built from inside the company, or I negotiated before I hit the door. I am a self-proclaimed GED and a smile. And I have friends who get very upset when I just summarize myself that way, but I am very proud of that title. And the reason is a couple of things. One, I dropped out of school to take care of that salesman great grandfather. I didn't get to complete my schooling the way traditional, students got to. I went back and I got my GED as a single mom. I was very proud to put in the work to not just pass the GED test, but as soon as I went into the classroom, I took the assessment. They want to know where you start. I excelled. I was already ready to test immediately as soon as I took the class, but I knew I wanted that classroom experience back. I wanted to be around other, learners, people being educated, and so I volunteered to help. I realized then I really loved helping. That dream of being a teacher when I was younger, when I was a student, I remember sitting in the elementary classroom thinking, wow, this is exactly what I want to do when I grow up. I want to help kids learn too. I was going to let them wiggle a little more. I was going to let them maybe talk and have some more playtime, because I knew that's what I needed most. And maybe I wanted to be a mentor because it gave me the ability to talk more often. So, I mean, truth be told, hop, skip, jump, here you are. I have been a certified staffing professional. I ran a staffing firm in Nebraska, which I helped create the second location of from the ground up. I ran every facet of the needs in that business while I was growing the market, while I was working in the Chamber of Commerce to get to know the community. I have run background screening companies. I have consulted for the last almost 15 years now, since 2015. 11 years. Gosh, whatever. Okay, a long time, guys. It feels like forever. But I have taken other people's dreams and helped them grow. Whether it was just setting them up for success by creating these data solutions, right? You have to collect data for it to work for you. Whether it was just getting a really good to-do list together, which is actually another set of data, right? I love numbers. I love information. I love before and afters. I'm an 80s kid, right? So infomercials were exactly what you watched after the television stopped playing your favorite sitcom. And that's what I do here. And so that's what I want to do today, because I have been talking about data. If you guys were at the last show, which happy 4th, I missed you. I took last weekend off, but the show the week before that was all about data. And when we were talking about it, you guys know I'm a big fan of documentation and action. I believe that is where all success lies. You write it down, you get to work. Once you're done with that, you assess the work, track the results, adjust for the next go. You have to keep refining your craft. And that's the pitch from door to door. I would change the way I implemented something. I would learn to retone. I would learn to match their energy. If I came in super hot and excited and they weren't, it was definitely not going to align. And that's true with our customers. It's true with our product launches. It's true with trying to roll out too many things at one time. How do you maneuver it all? How do you keep track of what's working, what's not, if you don't write it down somewhere? If somewhere's not capturing that. So that's where we're going to start. I want to ask you what you're tracking. And I'm going to come back and read the comments. I was highlighting you guys, but good morning to Aaron. David Pushkin, good morning. Says, hi, Melissa, and happy Saturday. Hailing. Ooh. Oh, healing from a very hot London, UK. For those who do not know me, I am your Chief Encouragement Officer. Looking forward to this encouraging conversation. Go Team Melissa. I love David Pushkin. His voice is fantastic. If you're not following him, you'd absolutely need to. Oh, and hey, speaking of voice, having a good sing along to the theme music. David, I'm glad you mentioned it because I always love my song. And I hate to say that out loud because it sounds very, I don't know, self-serving. Of course I love my song. It's my theme song. It's the song of the show. But Aaron Gibson created it. And what was really cool is he is very talented at what he does. And he can go into the lab and play for hours and tinker and fix. And there was just something special about the way we had one conversation. He went, did his thing, knowing how I do my thing, a little bit of inside information. He's been a listener, but he went into his lab, came back, and there was only like one line I needed to fix. And it was more of a trademark issue than anything. And it just came back perfect. And I don't say that lightly. It's just perfect for the show, for me, for the group, for the energy, for the everything. We have been working on something maybe for the end of the show. We're not going to tell too much, but that's coming too. I'm really excited about that. That's been in the back of the lab. He's waiting for me to get him some materials, but he's been working on something that I've been trying to get out for a while. And it's my fault. It's not here yet, but stay tuned. That's coming. It's coming. All right, let's talk about it though. So data, what are you guys tracking? Aaron Gibson says he's tracking where his coffee went. Definitely understand that. I'm always kind of tapping my hands around when I'm looking for certain things. And guys, that's kind of where it comes from, right? When we get busy, we forget the simplest things. You can forget where you put your keys down. You can be looking for the phone while you're talking to your friend on said phone. I've watched it happen. I've watched moms yelling at their kids while they're looking for their glasses that are sitting right on their forehead. There are times where the human brain just doesn't brain so hot. It gets busy. It's not a computer. Even computers can get overloaded. There's a max potential for them too. You can hit the max potential for anything. And then if you push too hard too long, rockets can have a bad day, right? Excuse me, I'm struggling with my throat this morning. So if I mute and come back, it's because I don't want to cough in your ear. But if you think about a rocket ship, if it goes too fast, too long, it's going to burn up some parts. It's going to run out of fuel. It's going to stop doing that. It's not always going to go up. At some point, if we're not tracking and measuring what we're doing and then adjusting, we're going to crash. And that's just a sad facet of life. But there are ways to prevent this, right? For those of you guys who don't know, when I'm not a coach, when I'm not on LinkedIn being a podcaster, I run a local motorcycle shop. I sell gear, not motorcycles. I sell the helmets, the jackets, the protection, the airbags, the boots. I'll sell you some blinkers and some cool flashy lights, and there's some accessories there. But the truth is, I sell gear to people who push the throttle down all the time. Whether I like it or not, it's what they do. And that throttle being grabbed on, just pull back, let's go, creates data. The RPMs start moving up. You start seeing your speed climb. You stop seeing data. You go too fast and it starts to blur on the sides and you can't get the details out of thin air anymore. You can't focus on what's happening around you if you're too focused on what's happening in front of you on that dashboard. If you're too focused on the few feet in front of you, because if you don't have that hyper focus, you're in trouble. You start to blur out the other stuff. And so we're going to talk about what we track most often. And honestly, I would have to venture to say we track our speed. If you're at all in a business where you have meetings, where you have deadlines, where you have to get to work. I mean, think about it, guys. How long does it take you to get to work? You know that. How long does it take you to get out of bed, get showered, get dressed, get to work? And how much wiggle room do you have? How long does it take you to get your cappuccino in that drive through? What if you wanted to stop for that bread you've been looking at in the window at that local bakery? Do you track how long that would take? What if you made a right this time instead of a left and then went up around the corner instead of going straight? Would it cut time? And have you figured that out? I think we don't assess how much data we're always tracking, how much we actually understand about our situation, scenarios, our options at any given time. And the reason we don't understand it is because we don't write it down. We don't track what we track. Isn't that weird? When you see the numbers, do you assume what they mean? You pull up your map on your phone and it says it's going to take you 20 minutes to get to point B from where you are now at point A. Do you assume that's a perfectly still number? There's nothing that can shift or change that number? Do you assume that maybe it's wrong and you can cut 2 minutes off because it's tracking you at a set speed and you know that maybe you go a little bit faster or slower than set speed? Do you account for the variables? I have a lot going on right now. I know. Thank you so much. I saw this comment here. Oh boy, somebody's on fire. And you know what? Guys, data is my favorite place to play. The very first thing I teach people when I'm talking to them, I don't care what facet of business we're in, I don't care what we're doing. If I'm coaching, consulting, or even talking motorcycle stuff, data first. Talk to me about what your needs are. Talk to me about your budget. Talk to me about your goal. Talk to me about what's happened previously. What do you have in your backpack right now? What can I help you grow from? What's already in your toolbox, right? How much assessment do we do before we get going? And so I want to know, number one, do you know where your data is? And can you tell me what it means before we get started? Because half of the time the battle is assessing the data, understanding what data means. Okay, I have the numbers. Now what? Yeah, I know, I make 10,000 a year, for example, but I need to make 40. I know the numbers, but what does it mean? Right? That would be something that you would have to definitely understand. And so, are you playing in a world where you understand the data? Are you always looking at it but going, oh, I just don't know what to do about it? How often do you look? I think about different things that we pause and we don't tackle right away. When I think about a personal use case, a credit card statement, for example, time will change that picture pretty quickly. Most credit lines are on a 30-day billing rate, which means they're also going to charge you interest in that same cycle. If you're not addressing and assessing that and when those fees can change, then when you go back to look at the data, it's going to be different than the last time you assessed it. Even if you haven't spent any more, you're going to incur charges because of the time we've spent. Does this make sense? What are other things that could be changing this? Urgency, guys. When I talk to a client in need, there could be a background screening issue. If I had a company call me and say, hey, Melissa, I'm very upset with ABC company. I want to come on over to where you are. Help me out. They're mad about a background check that happened last week. Okay. Usually they wanted John Doe to start. John Doe's background check took too long. They've been waiting. They're getting frustrated. Time is changing things about the relationship in their head. They're no longer excited to be with the background screening company they were with. And they start looking. And I got to tell you, I am not an exception to this rule. This is something that I would face. But here's what I know. If I'm getting inbound calls from Sally because ABC company is failing her because the background check is taking longer than they expected, and now she's mad and she wants to move, then I need to make sure that I'm watching my clock on the other hand. Are you with me? If I have Sally mad at her screening company because one background check is taking too long for them after years with this other company, solid, great service, then what are my clients thinking when we're on day 3, day 4? Is time that I'm going to take to service Sally going to create the same issue on the other side of things? Do I have time to take this client on, or would that time that I'm about to give Sally negate everything I did with the other companies on the other side? Do you have the time to say yes to the new dress, guys? Can you say yes to the new client? Can you afford to keep saying yes to your opportunities, to keep opting in? Do you need to pause things? Right? This is where your time management comes down to you. But that's the next step. If you know where your finances are, if you know where your time is, then we can compare the numbers, right? And they're never standing still, guys. Every day, every minute. Right now, our time is changing. As you sit here, the rest of your to-do list is crunching down. And it may not feel big yet. We just woke up. We're getting our coffee going. This is how we're going to get our body infused. We're getting our mind going. We're feeding ourselves before we tackle our to-do list. And that's great. But if we're not aware of the time we're spending in relaxation and the time it's going to take to get the job done, and if we're not aware that the time is ticking on the day clock, then we're in trouble. If we assume that we're getting 100% satisfaction with clients, and we just keep saying that, but we're never coming back to check that the clients are still satisfied, when does it shift so far that we're not telling the truth to ourselves or to others anymore? So much to consider about data, guys, but I just want you to understand data is ever evolving. There is no such thing as static unless it's over. A closed business has final numbers, right? It does. If it's over, it's over. But goodness me, why are we tracking things that are done? The people in my audience right now are growing things, right? So let's talk about what we're overlooking. It's easy to see that 10 people showed up. Are we looking at the RSVP list to see who said they'd come but didn't? Sales, that was my gift, right? If I was told we were going to have 100 people at a party and 75 showed up, the room would celebrate. Everybody was happy. 3 out of 4 coming to a networking event or a business event or a enter here, not too bad. Great. I'm glad you're happy. Where are my other 25 friends? What happened? Where was the disconnect? Did they forget? Should I have sent a tickler to remind them, hey, tonight's the night. Don't forget. See you at 5. Should I have called them? Hey, looking forward to seeing you Saturday at 5. Was it not us? Oh no, Bob got a flat tire on the way. Half of the people on the way pulled over to help. Oh no, that's a beautiful community story. I would still want to know what happened, right? I would want to reach out. And so if you know data's telling you something, are you looking at the whole? And how are you utilizing that data once you have it? Because it's cool to track your finances, but are you digging into why you spend the money, when you spend the money, where you spend the money? Are you happy with how you're spending your money? Because if you're happy, if it's everything you want it to be, good job. Doesn't mean it's bad just because you're spending. But are you looking at the gaps? If you go, hey, every Friday night I'm spending too much money, I would ask you what happens Friday afternoon. Is it Friday morning you decided you're going to go out? Or is it Thursday? Is it Wednesday? When did you determine you're going? When did you decide you don't care what you spend when you get there? And what was the causation, right? Was it an emotional decision? I'll be honest. If you come shop in my store, and I'm hoping any of my customers listen to this at some point, I tell them, I want to hear them. I want them to be here. I want them to engage. I want to hear from them because they're all so cool in their own crafts. But they'll tell you, if I see the emotion on their face, if I can read, it's a different kind of day. If I see what others are overlooking, if I just take it as, oh, here is a retail customer, let me just serve them the way they're asking, I'm going to miss something. And I'll be honest, guys, when you come into my store, if you're having a bad day and I know you're coming in just to blow a bunch of money because you just had a bad day and you want to just get a quick bump of, adrenaline and buy yourself some happiness, I'm probably going to stop you because I don't want to return. Number one, this is preventative maintenance. And I'm going to be honest with you, right? Like, I'm here to serve the customer. I'm here to serve the human, but I'm also here to do business. And so I'm looking at what's missing. What's missing is the smile, the energy that you usually bring. Hey, what's going on, Bob? Oh, having a bad day. All right, Bob, well, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the candy store. This is very much Willy Wonka's shop for motorcycles. But it's a safe space, and I hate to call it that, but it really is. There's an energy in the place. There's a welcomeness to the store. It's not something that just I believe. I have been fed this feedback from customers. I had one, Eddie. I'm going to talk about him behind his back to his face. I'll tell him I did. He came into the store. He had moved away. I hadn't seen his face in a while, and I knew that face. And I was like, hey, where have you been? I just missed you. It's kind of like when you guys show up. I don't really always know the name, but I knew those little face bubbles in those audio rooms. I could tell. I didn't know the full name, but I knew that first name and that little face profile bubble because you guys came to my audio rooms. So when you hadn't come, I would do the same thing. Hey, where have you been? And so I gave Eddie that energy, and he's like, man, I moved away. And he told me about going to a different community. I'll keep that private just because the feedback wasn't 100%. But he basically, summarizing, said, there's a special energy in my store. There's something special about being there. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, no, I don't know. It's just, you guys, it's great here. And you could just see it on him. Right. And so Eddie, knowing that energy was there, it's the same energy Bob's looking for on his bad day. He doesn't necessarily want to come spend, $500,000 on a jacket, a helmet, or whatever, but he would, just to experience the joy that is Bellingham. And so when I know this about the customers, when I know they're coming in for an experience, because we are, guys, we don't want to spend money without experiencing it, right? Very rarely do we just want to click go and have it. There's something cool about going in and being served good customer service, being able to ask good questions, get good answers, have a human be grateful you're there. Everybody can go onto the online platforms and hit buy now. We can. We're very capable. If you made it to LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube where we're streaming, you definitely can do that. But there's a value to coming to a place and engaging and being engaged and having that authentic conversation and genuine concern for making sure it's right. And I carry that very heavily in my store specifically, especially with the job I'm doing. I'm protecting lives. When I sell gear, I'm selling way more than just something cool to look at. I am absolutely trying to make sure they are as safe as possible on that rocket ship that they like to push the RPMs on. And so when they come in upset, I already know they're probably going to ride more aggressively. They're probably not paying attention like they normally do because, guys, you ever get a little distracted when life gets heavy? When something's not right in your life, do you drive perfectly all the time? Have you ever accidentally, oh my gosh, I didn't even see them in my blind spot? If you've ever been distracted while driving, imagine that plus being a distracted motorcyclist with less protection around them. Your distraction, their distraction can be very dangerous. So I want them to slow down when they come to my store. I want them to slow down so they can speed back up later, right? We've talked about this, but I want to know what's wrong. How can I help? What are we actually doing here? And I have told them, you're not allowed to buy today. And why do I do that? Because I'm looking at what's really in front of me. Yes, there's a customer. Yes, they have cash in hand. Yes, they're saying, I want to buy now. But they're also saying, I'm not okay. I'm here for a quick fix. And you know what, guys? If you know what's actually missing for the customer, you don't always have to sell them something. Sometimes the best thing you can do is tell them no and tell them to come back tomorrow if they mean it. Being able to look beyond the data and see the connection. Because I tell you what, when my customers come in and I have told them, no, you can't buy this, but the next day they come back and they're like, look, thank you for caring and thank you for trying to make me stop, but I really do want this helmet. I did think about it. I'm not going to bring it back. I mean it. I'm not just shopping because I'm upset, but thank you for caring. I have a lifelong customer. They do. And that happens with coaching. It's not just in the motorcycle shop. If I know it's not me, if I know I'm not your answer, I'm going to tell you so. But I'm going to take that data and I'm going to connect you to your solution. It reminds me so much of The Miracle on 34th Street. Anybody ever watched that movie? I know it's July, but we're going to do Christmas in July right now because it's my show and I do what I want. Also, I baked some mint Andy's cookies not too long ago and I put them on a Christmas platter because why not? But here's the thing. What I loved about that movie and something that always resonated with me as a salesperson was when the little boy was sitting on Santa's lap asking for a special toy and mom's like, don't tell him you're going to get it. They are sold out everywhere. You can't get it. And Santa's like, I know where it is. Go down to this toy store. It's on this street. They got you. That connection, that moment, it hit me in my soul because I was like, ooh, they're in trouble, right? I was a child. I didn't understand the depths of business. I didn't understand, oh my gosh, are you seriously taking all of these marketing dollars and all the revenue we've generated to get people to stand here? And if you've ever been at the top of a business, you realize that funnel is a deep, wide, expensive one to get them from not shopping to standing in the building with bags in their hand, right? So to send them away, you must be crazy. But there was value in helping the person get what they needed. You didn't have to be the final solution, but if you got them to the place, you were part of the success story. Sometimes people look at it just as the revenue they generate for themselves and not the success they can generate for others. And I definitely know that we can't work for free. And I will be on your butt about it if you're my coaching client and you're giving it away all the time. Trust me. But it doesn't mean you still can't help. Right? And sometimes the data points that we have, we miss a connection in how the data works together, but sometimes we also miss the human connection, guys, because the humans create the data. You got me? Humans create the data. Without the humans, we have no movement. Without any of the humans who want to buy, sell, the data that they help us construct, without the human who created LinkedIn, without the human who did Excel, without this business, this platform of Microsoft, I didn't create it. I wouldn't be who I am right now without YouTube, without Facebook, without Amazon, without my publisher, without my friends who connected me to the other connections, to the dots, to the music, to the opening of my show. It all came together because of the connection. And there were data points. I saw my network growing. I saw the humans climbing. I saw myself go from 1,200 people on a platform after a decade to now 16,000 just a few years later, right? The output, I can see it, but it really comes down to the connections. How was I growing? What made it memorable? What made it important? What was valuable connection versus just growth for growth's sake? Because a weed just grows, right? But what is the purpose of the weed? Is there some value to it, or is it just taking, right? And so we got to always understand what we're tracking, why it matters. And to be honest with you guys, are you tracking what matters or what is easiest to measure? That question, it knocked me right off my socks. It really did. Because what I was thinking about it, when I was thinking about how we track and what we track and when, I really got down into the nitty gritty of nothing land. When I thought about credit card debt, which most people have, so I'm going to use it a lot today because it's an easy example. You're tracking your spending on your credit card for sure, right? If you have a $500 limit, for example, you know when you get to that 450 mark. So you're tracking that. But how often are you tracking the interest on that 450? How often are you tracking the due dates? Is there a penalty? Is there a late fee? Is there a time or place where you could be saving yourself money just by maybe paying a day earlier? Are you tracking that part or just the available balance? Right? There's multiple facets to that data. If you go into the data itself, what are we buying? How vital is this purchase if we're going to increase the fee by whatever your rate is? You have interest rates that are 1%. You have some cards that are 0% for the first whatever. And you know what? It's silly not to put the bills on that one versus the other one, right? I see people moving balances over all the time to offset that. And that's wonderful because they're tracking the data inside the data. What do you do with it once you've moved it? Are you paying it off faster now that you're not paying the interest rate? Are you applying that additional interest that you would have been paying to the baseline balance? Are you just spending more because you have less problems financially on the interest rate now? Because that long term, it's not a great plan if you don't zero it out while you have 0%. And that's just one example. But guys, time management. Let's talk about where you spend your time. How much is wasted? I love video games on my phone. I blame Candy Crush. And actually, I'm going to go all the way back to AOL. It's AOL's fault for introducing me to Pogo, Pogo. Still out there somewhere. I know I went looking for it not too long ago. When I found the internet in the 90s, 2000s, late 2000s, early 2000s, I was a mom. I had my own place. I remember buying my first computer and I got online. And you know what I did with my online time? I played video games. I didn't do sales strategies. I didn't go out on a social platform and try to build a network. I went into chat rooms. I met some friends. I still have some friends from back then. It wasn't much different than what I do here. Maybe I was learning to network more effectively from a distance. But I would spend hours online on Pogo playing games. Eventually, I was like, girl, you got to get off the games. You're going to end up doing nothing but games your whole life. And the truth was, that's what I was focused on. But I knew that my mind wanted to be stimulated. I understood the why I was there. I knew that I was spending hours online on Pogo and I was playing. But when I assessed what I was doing, it was word games. It was puzzle games. I was playing card games, strategy games against others, whether it was poker or whatever it was. It was all these online forums. You could play Scrabble against each other. Words with Friends eventually came out. Candy Crush was a big one, right? Can you strategize? Can you get the biggest combo? Can you? And I loved it because my brain wanted stimulus. What I traded Pogo for was college. I went back to school. My brain wanted to be stimulated. Once I understood that, and once I knew I didn't want to waste my time stimulating it in that way anymore, it wasn't as fulfilling. There's only so many ways you can beat solitaire yourself. A top score is a top score is a top score. So I fought myself in something else. And when I realized that all I wanted was to stimulate my brain, I could function more effectively, use it better, right? And we have to measure different times, different ways. different stages of life. Um, as I go through this time where my life has been in kind of a transition mode and a big question mark. That's all I keep living in right now, because I am facing things with my dad going through chemo. We're not sure how that's going to work. So I'm measuring my time with him differently these days, right? I'm currently married and I'm trying to figure life out around that and the things that I've experienced in the past few months, and what does that look like, and how do I proceed with a smile with what I know I am facing. And that is self-care. I'm also working on me in other ways, right? Everything is changing, but the things I want to change, I am tackling with intention. If everything around me is going to shift anyway, if I cannot control the river, then I will control my movement within the water. I get to determine if I'm going to push against the stream and go uphill. I get to determine if I'm going to sit down and float downhill. Am I just going to wait and let it rush around me and enjoy my space right where I stand, anchored into the ground? Do I go lay on the shore and just let it go by while I watch it move and glisten and sparkle, and I ponder what my next move will be? Depends on the day. I've done them all in the same afternoon. Was it before or after lunch? And guys, that's okay. It can shift that quickly. It can happen to you where in one moment it's one thing, and then it's different, and then it's back. And you get to determine what that is for you in that moment. Because if you're not going to address those feelings, those needs, those wants, if you're not going to shift with the moment because life requires that, I always have a really great plan together right up until the plan doesn't work. Then I have 57 other plans, right? I have an alphabet full of ideas in my back pocket. It's part of the PTSD. I don't, if you guys are just getting to know me, I was diagnosed with PTSD when I was living in Nebraska. It was after a house fire where my daughter's life was almost lost. And I just couldn't shake the rattle within. I couldn't sit on the porch on a cool winter night without panic if I saw the dryer vent pushing hot air out because it looked like smoke. It was like exhaling in a cool or a cold day where you can see your breath. The dryer was creating this imagery of chaos, of fear, of what's happening inside. Is it like it was before? And honestly, guys, that shift of understanding that sometimes those feelings that I'm handling inside, they're gonna win, right? That's unfortunately the diagnosis of PTSD. You can absolutely treat it, but it is a traumatic disorder. And so the best you can do is circumvent your traumas, have good boundaries, talk with mental health people, make sure you're talking with doctors if there is medication that's required, because you can't ignore the data. You can't ignore the diagnoses. You can't pretend you've got it just because you've had it. Things change, right? And so when we hear of these stories of soldiers who come back and they have PTSD, and then we understand the data of their 22 a day. And that's just US statistics, guys. That doesn't encompass the globe. I think it's much higher in places that are worse off than us. Understanding data, it would just correlate that lesser supported areas, people without mental health counselors in every phone book, in every city, would struggle a little more, right? War-torn and famished countries wouldn't have the financial means to do so or even make that the priority. If you're not eating, you're not worried about your mental health, it's already bad. The whole health is a risk at this point. And so understanding the data, ignoring the data, understanding you have a diagnosis but ignoring it, understanding you're going through life but ignoring it. My dad has cancer. I can ignore that data if I want to, but the reality is his DNA resides within. So if I ignore it, I could be ignoring something that I might have to face in a different way later. And it's very selfish in that statement. I want to be honest. That's not the only reason you wouldn't ignore this, but that is a facet, right? How many times have you guys ignored that ache? Have you ignored pre existing conditions that run in your family and you have the symptoms, but you're not going to see if your blood sugar's high? What if your parents love to keep things shoved in a closet and then eventually the closet got too full, so they went to the other closet and then the spare room and then the garage and then the hallway and then the backyard, and then all of a sudden you're on the show Hoarders? Are you ignoring the steps your parents took to get to the final destination? Are you still shopping the same way? Are you treating your wounds the same way your parents did? Are you healing? Because there's a causation to everything, right, guys? We don't just want to do this. There's something that starts. It's a habit that's built. It's us ignoring something, creating the habit of ignoring the problems. Oh, I just want my house to look nice, and I'm going to ad lib a little bit, but through the years watching Hoarders, I've seen the stories of, I wanted a nice house. I love these things. They're beautiful. And then you take them in the house and you can't see anything because it's all on top of itself. And so causation, effect, ROI. If you tell me you want one thing, but your actions take you somewhere else, it makes me question, right? And I have to assess the data with you. And I can't just ignore that you say you want A, but you keep doing B, and you're wondering how we get here. People say, hey, I know I'm a busy person. I know how to run my business. I know how to get things done. But then when I ask them, hey, that's cool. Can you just show me? Because I don't know your schedule. Can you just break down your calendar for me to show me how many hours a day you're functioning in a workspace versus busy work? They're like, oh, I'm always busy. I don't waste time. And then they sit down and they actually open up their calendar. And then they go in through their emails. They look at their text. They look at the time spent on their apps, right? Because there are device summaries on those apps, guys. Your phone will tell you how bad it is. And when we look at the data, they're like, well, I didn't know I spent 4 hours there. I didn't know I was, spending 3 hours on the weekend playing Candy Crush every morning. I was just sitting there. I didn't realize. Now, I'm not opposed to Candy Crush. As a matter of fact, as somebody who finds themselves to be a little neurospicy, playing Candy Crush while I listen to an audiobook on self-help or a documentary about whales or whatever it is, I'm actually more focused on the knowledge being shared than I would be if I had to just sit there and look at the screen. That data is something I couldn't ignore either. I used to get in trouble all the time in school for doodling while the teacher was talking. But if I wasn't doodling, I wasn't understanding. My brain would float into other spaces. I might be a little ADD, right? And so when I know this about myself, if I know I can't focus on you, if I know a certain delivery, or if the music's too loud, I can't hear the lyrics, it's something I understand, and it's data I can't ignore, because if I really need to understand what you're saying, buddy, can we turn down the song? I can't hear you. Hey, buddy, I know you're upset, but you got to lower your tone because I'm not listening anymore because my filter's up, my trauma's triggered, and I want to be an effective listener to you, but you have activated my do not disturb button. And guys, being able to deliver the data in a way that is understanding is important too, right? And even to yourself. Do you understand how to say out loud what you're feeling? Do you think, oh man, I'm having a bad day. I already know what this looks like. I'm done. I know how to autopilot through this. You already understand what a bad day looks like. So, yep, let's just dive in both feet. I got this. We're going to ignore any solution or any possible deviation from the bad because I already know how this goes. There are so many ways you can look at how data presents, because even your response is data. Your lack of response is data. And how many times have you taken a second look and went, oh crap, maybe I should have done it this way? If only we would have. Oh man, that's not what they meant at all. I misunderstood. I'm going to pause here for a second, guys. Number one, we're almost at the top of the hour. I can't believe it's almost been an hour already. So, for those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Melissa Houston. I am the cultivator of dreams, motivator of human capital. And I do this show once a week on Saturdays, 6 a.m. I do sometimes take a break because I'm a really good boss and I give myself some downtime, usually to fill it with some uptime somewhere else, if I'm being quite honest with you. But the truth is, I love to be here. I love to do this Saturday mornings with you, 6 a.m. every week, to just dive into what I've been thinking, to really just talk about what I've been talking about and give you some stuff to grow from, things to consider, things to share, things to assess, just reflect on. And I think that's part of what this is. What would happen if you looked again? Like, look back at your week, guys. When we talk about this, what could you have done differently based on the data you're getting? And not just my show, other shows. Speaking of other shows, tomorrow's show with Felipe, we're doing Careers, Chaos, and Coaching. That is a bi-weekly Sunday show. Same concept. We just want to dive into the things we've been diving into and share it with the friends we've built. And we have some really cool friends, and they have some really cool shows, and they all kind of tackle their own topics. But I want you guys to go and follow. Take a second look at the people maybe you've been skipping because you assumed you knew what was happening over there. Funny enough, if you knew them 2 years ago and you're like, I already know who they are, go back. People grow. Maybe that one show you attended was a small snippet of who you thought they were. But what would happen if you looked again? Guys, what about that journal, that planner, those notes, that dream that's in the back of your mind you've been talking about doing forever and haven't? What if you looked at it again now that you're a little older, wiser, more experienced? David Miller asked a question. Welcome, David. He says, is it better to ignore your triggers to PTSD or face them head on? I don't think you should ever ignore anything triggered. Anything with a trigger that can be triggering, I think we should address and assess. Even if it's to say, no, thank you. 4th of July just happened. There were fireworks all over the city and the county. I live close to the Indian reservation where it's legal to, shoot them off. They sell them. There was a huge display. Those with PTSD had a very serious decision to make. Do I enjoy the show, try to focus, try to engage in these sounds and display, the stimulation, the crowd? It can be different depending on who you are, right? And so military bases don't do fireworks. It's not beneficial to everybody on base. But there were tons of military professionals who decided to opt into the show. I think it's important to be aware of what could happen. If you know you could be triggered, maybe you're not going to be armed that day. If you know you're going to be triggered, maybe you'll have a safety plan, a safety person. I won't speak for others, but I know many times there can be a glance, a handshake, a tap, a text, a special code word. Let's go is all it takes, because that's sufficient to communicate, I can't do it. If you have a plan, it's great. But I don't think PTSD should be handled alone. I am not a medical professional. I'm just somebody who experiences the symptoms of what PTSD brings. It's not something that I would face alone and didn't. Now, I will say, I have absolutely understood my triggers enough to set harsh boundaries when necessary. I will flat out go, nope, this does not feel good. We're stopping here. Even if it's a friendly conversation, even if it's just banter, even if it's playful, if it stops feeling that way, I immediately identify that and assess it out loud. Because if you ignore that feeling, and not just PTSD, guys, sadness, anger, frustration, feeling ignored, feeling invisible, any of the things that mental health can bring, if you ignore them, they grow. It's the weed. Weeds are going to pop up. You have to tend your mental health garden, and you have to get help when necessary. If I am out there weeding 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the weeds are beating me, I'm calling a professional. Aaron says, actually reminds me of being in downtown Bellingham with wheels and some dude started shouting down the block. Oh, yeah. Immediately, Aaron was like hyper vigilant mode. He was ready to go. Ex-military just activated. His body moved between me and the danger. And I was like, bro, I'm from Arizona. I drove cab at night. I'm not scared of these people. Like, they don't want to come over here. But we were moving. We weren't going to stay in that position where he wasn't feeling comfortable, where others were making discomfort happen intentionally. And then, why engage that if you have the choice to leave? Now, if we were stuck, if we couldn't change our environment, if we were in a corner in an alley and this was happening and they were approaching, we would have to assess differently. But because we knew that's not where we were, we chose to just enjoy our day in the other direction. Right? And so I think it's important to, one, always be assessing. Always. Your surroundings are changing always. And let's go back to the car. If you're on the road, you can't just go, hey, I'm in my lane. I get to go this set speed. I'm going to autopilot and forget the others around you, because they're going to change their direction, speed, movement. They might be distracted. They may not be on an autopilot. They may not have the car that drives for them. And so you have to constantly be evolving. You constantly have to look for that thing that someone else might miss. Good morning to those of you who are coming. Before I dive into this too much, because I really want to pause on this, I just want to welcome Nick, my publisher, and Miss Leslie Flowers. She is a co-author in the books. I was just reaching out to Nick today. I am out of copies. I am down to my last one of each book I have. And I'm like, what the heck happened? So I have to, anyway, I'm excited to get some more books. Let me tell you, speaking of books, that's where I was going next, is I have been listening to a book on Audible, and it's not for everybody. I'm going to tell you right now, it's very military, very direct, these were my orders. This was the mission. This is what went down. This is the business application. And no offense, I'm not trying to mock him. It's just this is where it is. And so it feels like I'm sitting in ROTC again a little bit. It feels like I got a sergeant just telling me what it is. I'm sure the seal is a little bit higher than that, but it is Extreme Ownership is the name of the book. It is a #1 New York Times bestseller, and it is How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. So it's by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. And it really boils down to that extreme ownership of, it doesn't matter whose job it is. It doesn't matter what's supposed to be going on, who was supposed to be in charge of that mission, of that particular moment in the mission. If you see it and they didn't, take ownership, right? And that's not the whole premise, but that's where I was with it this morning when I was thinking about this specifically. One of my employees, I'm not going to share his name, but he wants to go on a boat, and he wants to work on a boat, and he's going to go spend a week actually doing some training on a ship, and eventually wants to be able to travel the world and rent a boat wherever, charter a boat wherever he is. And I think it's fantastic. But I also have watched Deadliest Catch, and with all of that, professional boating experience I now have by watching a TV show from my couch, I know that extreme ownership is a skill set that is required on board, right? when I look at these vessels and I look at the fishermen and I look at the captain, and everybody is responsible to make sure the ship doesn't go down. There is nobody who's not responsible for the hole that's got water coming up out of the bottom. And I have that kind of ownership in my workplace. No matter where I go, my job is to do more than is on the task list. I always looked at, Dairy Queen, for example. I'm weird about milk, guys. Super weird. I don't like milk. If I drink milk, it has to be like the first cup of the glass, and it's got to be in a glass, and I need to make sure the glass is clean and it's like dry before you start pouring milk in it. And it's a little weird. I'm particular. But I worked at Dairy Queen. That milk was everywhere. It doesn't matter what you try to do. When you're blending a blizzard, that stuff splatters. So in between customers, even though my job was to make the blizzards, fill the stations, wipe down the counters, count the money, I would pull the cases out and I would scrub down the sides. I would scrub down the walls. I would do the extra steps to get the stuff nobody else saw. And I quickly became the owner's favorite, as you can imagine. But if you take that same kind of accountability in life, in my store, when I walk through, I walked through the other day and I had hands full of stuff and I couldn't do anything but just get to where I was going. No bending over, no nothing. But I saw a piece of paper on the floor and I thought, oh man, I got to grab that. And then I forgot and I went on vacation. It was only a couple days, I was off for a few days, not really vacation, but off. I come back and I saw that piece of paper. And I thought to myself, this is something that is small. But for me, it was big because I noticed it immediately. I was too busy in the moment to tackle it, but others missed it. And they missed it multiple times for multiple days in front of multiple customers. Not a big deal. It's a piece of paper. But if that same team is now wanting to go on a ship, I got a little nervous in my brain. And the mother hen in me started clucking. I was like, oh no. So what did I do? I told my employee, hey, I would love for you to read this book before you go on the boat. I really want you to understand how serious this is. And I think the SEALs being on boats and then also being really good at what they do to go make sure everybody gets home safe when needed is something you should take on the boat with you. I think you should read it before you get on the boat. Take the knowledge with you. Now, whether or not the person will listen, I can't force, compliance on reading books outside of work. And it's not really a duty I can assign during a very busy summer in a motorcycle shop. However, I think that kind of knowledge share, knowing that I see something that this person may not have harnessed yet, knowing that I see a gap in that extreme ownership that I would really hope to see in that team of boaters. And they'll learn it, right? That's not my job either. I'm not here to teach them that. But if I already have the ear and I know I see a skill that could be further developed, then I need to share that. That's who I am as a person. And so when you have that happening, like, do you see something that others don't? Are you complaining about a problem at work and nobody else seems to notice or care about it? I would encourage and implore you to ask yourself why you're not addressing it. If you're the wisdom in the room, but you're failing to share your wisdom, how wise is that? I love all of these comments, but I want to see what David says here about accountability. I love this theme of accountability is so strong here. Once you realize you as a human being are accountable for your actions, then you can control your destiny. And really, guys, it goes back to that quote, right? For me, at least that's what came up when he said it, is that victory and victim both start out the same way. It's up to you how it ends. And it really comes down to you are accountable for your happiness. If you're unhappy in the room, you don't have to change the room. You don't have to rearrange it. You don't have to make everybody conform to you. You can get your butt up and go find a new room. You also could change the dynamic of the room. If you're like me, I would assess how many other people might be feeling this way. And I might just ask the question, anybody else as bored as I am? Can we play a game? Can we go get ice cream? I'm hungry. Anybody else want snacks? Because if you're unhappy and you can assess what makes you unhappy and you know you're in a group of people, number one, if you want to stay in that group of people and you're just like hungry, just ask. Anybody else want to get some snacks? Maybe we go get chips and salsa. Do you know how long you could sit at a restaurant and eat chips and salsa without getting full? Does anybody have? I remember being an 80s kid, and here comes the ADD. That how many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop? I wanted to know how many chips it would take to get to the full feeling at a chips and salsa night. I really wanted it to be a contest. Where are those Arizona restaurants? This should be a thing. We could do a marketing thing. I want free chips and salsa. Fly me and we'll do it. But guys, it comes down to us. It comes down to what we keep seeing, what keeps showing up that we haven't connected to the solution yet. Maybe we see that reoccurring credit card bill and we just haven't correlated that 30% interest rate is why it's the same balance every month. If you never pay more than the minimum, if you're always going to get interest, you're going to be wading but not swimming. You're not going to get far. If you're in the river and you want to get to the shore, paying that minimum balance is not going to get you there, guys. Right? You will be swimming upstream the whole time, thinking you're trying to get to the shore. If you are spinning, if you are swimming upstream and you're not getting anywhere, when do you ask for help? If you can't figure out how to go from where you are now to where you want to be, and you have attempted it every way you know, how are you going to get connected to the solution if you don't diversify your approach? This is something that's hard because honestly, we just want to keep tapping that spot, right? We've heard the story of tapping the tree in the same spot, the axe, you'll get there. But have you ever hit a tree in a knot? Have you ever found a knot while you're trying to chop wood, cut wood? You can have a bandsaw that can tackle a tree bigger than me, but as soon as that knot shows up, not a dang thing's happened. Nothing. It just stops service because the way the saw was meant to move does not work within the knot. If you stay where you are, keep trying to keep getting through that knot, you're going to work very hard for little reward. And then what was the purpose of the wood anyway? Why were we chopping it? Is it something we were going to use to make a beautiful table? Because a knot in the table could mean problems later, right? If you've ever done any kind of woodworking, you know that you wouldn't have the final result you're looking for if you're trying to take part of the tree that will never be able to become what you're asking of it. And so you're working on this part of the tree that you can't harness anyway. You can't harvest it to fruition. And so you're spinning your wheels and you don't even know it because you don't understand wood. You've never encountered a knot before. But you've cut things, so you're just going to keep cutting. You could figure it out eventually. And that's probably true, guys. But at what cost? Have you connected your actions to your bottom line? This is the stuff where the data speaks, right? Time management is something that I really need to start pushing back as a coaching and consulting thing that I'm focused on, because the truth is that's where we get. I can give you a to-do list and an action plan, but if you keep stalling on step 2 and we never assess the stalling, if we never assess why it's so hard for you to get that thing done. If you're always stuck on the Canva step, and I don't know it because, I Canva and I assume you Canva. I don't assume, I never assume. But what if that was the case? What if I was like, hey, just go make a graphic for this and come back? And you're like, graphic? What do you mean graphic? What if you just didn't get it and your coach didn't understand you didn't know? What if your team has not made the connection yet to what you're asking of them and why it matters? When I see a team member struggling to meet goal, if I see it, and I coach others in my district, my store does really well, really, really well. Statistically speaking, we lead the way in so many of our KPIs that even though we're not the top performing in overall sales, right? We don't generate the most revenue. Our KPIs are best. The percentages are great. And we're constantly at the top or fighting for that top position. That said, it put me in a position to coach other stores on the things that they weren't doing well with. And me being able to just come in and go, let's talk about the data and teach them to read between the lines. Teach them that a well-set store is worth an entire human in your budget. It's almost having the equivalent of like $40,000 worth of staffing if your store is so well organized that you can just go find it yourself as the customer. If you know that, then you work on the clean store to help get to goal. If you're short-staffed and you know you don't have a ton of time to serve every customer, then the biggest priority is making sure in your downtime that store is set and clean so you don't have to be there when you're busy. It's a small thing, but that small thing compiled on other small things, other little tips, tricks, hacks, ideas, concepts. Working a community event when I first showed up at my store almost 3 years ago. In September, it's going to be 3 years with the bike shop. And as I showed up, we had 14 people at our community event. 14 bikers showed up for free food, games, prizes. And last summer, our top amount of bikers was 125. That's just bikes. We didn't count the humans, just the bikes. Exponential growth. In 3 years, that's almost 10 times, right? What isn't said in the data is Melissa cooked. Melissa welcomed them all. Melissa was the one at the grill every time serving food like mom would. It feels like Thanksgiving when you come to my shop on bike night because I want you to know you're welcome there. I've missed you. What have you been up to? Make sure you go say hi to Uncle Bob in the corner over there. And I do. I send them around and I want them to play games and I want them to know each other. And if you stand at my table too long and you don't know each other, I'll say, Bob, do you know Steve? Steve, do you know Bob? Hey, he rides that yellow bike and he rides that red bike. And they laugh at me because I don't say what kind of bike it is. I just throw a color out there and let them have the conversation. And they correct me. Yeah, my red bike's a this bike. Oh, yeah, my yellow bike is this. That connection I make in the community connected them to the store, connected them to me, connected me to successful numbers because they keep coming back. And if I know this is true in the bike shop, what would happen if I did it in other spaces? What if you knew your successes in one aspect of your life and then you took that circle, that filter, that Venn diagram and overlapped it to others? Could you figure out success in comparable ways? What do you know about you? Even if you just know you've been successful and you've pushed through and you've made it to the end of the finish line of the goal, you gave up when nobody else, or you didn't give up when everybody else did. Maybe you gave up early enough to know, hey, that's a losing battle. What do you do? Guys, don't do that. You're going to, spill it right on top of your head. If you can see what others are missing, what would happen if you took your vision to a different room? One where it's celebrated, one where people were willing to listen, one where you had more control of the outcomes. Because that's really what being a solopreneur is. That's what being in business for yourself or growing something personal. You don't have to go and just give up everything, right? We know it's hard. People here have talked about the journey to go from zero to nothing. I have done it. I have gone from being fully employed, running a business for the owner, to firing them because they weren't a great employer and going solo and being fully responsible for my financial well-being as along with my family, because we were mid-move. We were going from Nebraska to Washington and very little safety net. I had a contract, I negotiated a sign-on bonus, and that's all we had. And if that failed, if I didn't execute with that client, we were done. And we were in a new state with no contacts really. We were in trouble if it didn't work. But what did I know? I knew every successful business I had worked for looked at me when they needed help. I knew that when I went into even sell magazines after my fiance died, when I was in the saddest time of my life, guys, I had lost a baby. I was pregnant right before Jeremiah passed away. We lost a baby due to me being Rh negative and not realizing that the shot that they gave me had not been effective anymore. So that was heavy. And then Jeremiah passed away 3 days before the wedding. That was heavy. And so I was in autopilot. I literally didn't care about growing. I had a kid. I needed to be there for the kid. I needed to breathe every day. I needed to keep going. So what I did was I went to the craft store. And it sounds silly, but I used art as a therapy, even at the call center. I went in, I was on an auto dialer. I put a headset on. I was sitting at a desk. It beeped. I read my script. It was under the glass of our desk, so you didn't even have paper on your desk really for work. It was just a clean space. And I cluttered it up with all of my markers and pens and stuff. And 3 months into the year, I was one of the top sellers. My cousin being the other top seller, she was the one who got me the job. We got to go on an all-expense paid cruise to Mexico because I was a top seller, all because I sat and I colored and I just found my voice and I connected with people and I did it in spite of. And so I knew that about myself. I knew I could get through times when it was hard, right? And so then I gave myself new hard things to do. And the next thing I did was leave my entire universe behind in Tucson, Arizona, to go move in with my new boyfriend in Bullhead, which, if you guys know your geography in Arizona, that means I went from the bottom right-hand side of the state to the top left-hand side of the state. Just jumped over. I did hard things. This couldn't be harder. That empowered me. I went from, giving up housing. We talked about this in the last show. Giving up housing, breaking up with the government, leaving Arizona, Mesa, Phoenix area, going to Tucson to Bullhead. And it worked. I broke up with the government, was able to self-sustain. I broke up with my old life after it was no longer life. Everything that I had built in Tucson was gone. I had found a new relationship. I was one of the first to date online. I swear I was. I was over there on MySpace and accidentally opting into it. And I made a jump. That gave me 18 years of marriage. It gave me children that were not just mine. They were somebody else's genetically, but I got to help raise them. I got to enjoy the experiences of watching my son Ryan take his first bite of baklava and how emotional it made him and how much he loves food today. Watching our youngest boy, Logan, learn Japanese and doing it because he loved anime and eating ramen and only eating with chopsticks for a while and all of the things. The kid is just a brilliant kid who graduated early. He's trying to figure life out, but he had that, right? And I got to watch him grow and I got to watch this experience now. I have my daughter, she's just so close to 18 and she knows what she wants and she knows what she doesn't. And she knows she has no idea what she wants to be when she grows up yet, but it's going to be creative. What I know is that every single one of my children, including my son who went into sales and became the top salesman in his craft and at the dealership as soon as he started, every single one of them has harnessed their gifts and has faced fears and has had to start over too. Every time I moved, they moved. These guys got to experience themselves in the Midwest, in the desert, in the Pacific Northwest. They got to be kids who were eating corn given to them from farmers out of the back of the truck at the Walmart. No joke. Farmers would just leave grocery bags, put free corn sign up, and you could just take from their truck while they shopped. And the kids loved it. And we would go home and clean it up and eat it. And that was an experience for them. They got to chase fireflies. And then they got to come to the Pacific Northwest and watch the crabs and tiny little crabs in the sand move around. And they got to play in the springs up by Mount Baker in the woods. And it's all different. They get to be dirty kids in the desert playing in the sand and the dirt in the backyard. They can live and experience different things because we've made them experience different things. Some would say, hey, making kids move around sucks. Well, yeah, okay, it does. But military families do it often, and those military kids don't really seem worse off for it all the time. Some struggle, right? Some don't have the same lifelong experience of going to kindergarten with the same friend all the way to high school. I'll be honest. I have friends from school, even though I moved around because of social, especially now. You can maintain those friendships and you can move them around with you. Relationships change. The way we look at life. We moved. Does that mean we're not friends anymore? Because I'll be honest, guys, look around. None of us are in the same town. We're not sitting in the same room right now. Heck, I have people coming in from England, right? David Pushkin's over in Europe. Over there. I got Lauren Sermon in Florida. Leslie Flowers is in North Carolina. I got my friend up in Canada, Mr. Aaron Gibson. I got Nick in New York. Felipe's in Maryland, and we do a show together all the time. It's a perspective. We track what happened, but not what changed around it. What changed? Our location? Okay. Am I different when I go from street A to street B? If I go 3 blocks down, am I a different Melissa, or am I just in a new space? If I don't change my behavior when I shift employers, the same problems will happen at this job. We paid off the credit card debt, but if we started using it again, how did we pay it off? Did we do it because we got a plan and we did it slowly over time, paying more than the minimum? Or did we get lucky, have a windfall of some sort, but never change the behaviors that are going to create the problem and have it return? Ooh, look, Leo. Hello, Miss Yvette and Gabe from Texas. See, look, we're covering the globe today, guys. We got east, west, north, south. Well, better watch out. Don't blow on anything. We might conjure up some business. What I've noticed about life, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but doesn't it seem like the loudest metric always gets all the attention? The screaming kid, the sick one, the check engine light, the alarm, the one that you could have 50 things on your calendar, but if the one that is buzzing at you is the one that gets your attention, then that's it, right? When we talk about KPIs, I struggle because there's always something behind the data. If we talk about foot traffic, it could diminish one day and be up exponentially the next. And when I look at that without any other knowledge, if I'm looking at, say, retail, right? There's no data on this day, but the next day it's huge. Well, we were closed for a holiday. There's a very good likelihood that it's Thanksgiving and the next day is Black Friday. Were we closed to extreme weather and then there was an influx because everybody needed to come in on the same day instead of splitting it between the 2 days that would have actually happened? What changed the metric and why? And then if it's, hey, sales are up, that's great, wonderful. I'll be honest, most of the time, success, people look at the dollars. For me, I don't. Dollars are wonderful. Can I see your percentage of increase or decrease? Just because you made $5 million this year, that spike is wonderful. What'd you make last year? Is it next to it? Are we assessing all the data? You made $5 million this year, but you laid off half of your sales force. Which one matters most to you? Is there a correlation? Did you save on, salaries? Did you increase revenues? Are we looking at the whole picture? Because it's easy to boast about things when there's one big metric, right? But what is that consistent data across all of the KPIs telling you? Are you retaining your staff? Are they staying? Because honestly, the longer you keep a staff that's trained and building relationships, the stronger the KPIs get. Maybe you hire a new person, they come in with all this energy and gusto and they get some things done. They do it a little different. They have that energy nobody else has, but what about the others who have been consistently performing? Is that new spike going to change the way you look at the old team? Sometimes we think, oh, there's the answer. I'm done now. Right? Oh, I found it. I found success in Bellingham. I know that every single one of my team will do as corporate ask. We have certain things we're supposed to provide to every customer, certain offerings that we're supposed to mention at every engagement, making sure you know your purchasing power, making sure you understand how to save the most in our store, making sure we're selling you what you need so we don't waste your time and you don't waste ours, right? I know my team can do that. Doesn't mean I stop looking. My team is number one in our district for most of this. Like the only other store I got to give credit to, my former assistant manager is there too. So I know they're rocking socks because they're dialed, we're dialed. We fight each other for top all the time. We don't slow down on that though. Just because we're in the top doesn't mean we stop. And the reason we don't stop is because it's easy to backslide, guys. Have you ever been successful on a diet and then not? Oh, I hit my goal. I don't have to do this anymore. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, where's that? I was just standing on the podium. How the hell did I get back to the starting line? I was just winning. Why is the race over? What just happened? How did I get to here? And it's because we stop watching. We stop assessing the data. We stop reviewing. And so that's where this is coming from. When I launched the data, which is the document, act, track, adjust, it's because the data is in the data. And then you got to rinse and repeat. We've talked about the rinse and repeat, but we got to track and adjust. We got to go back. We got to start over. Maybe you ran that lap and you did wonderfully, but the race isn't done until the business is closed. Until you say, we're not doing this anymore. You have to track, adjust, and go back and start. It's always going to be the next day. It's always going to be a fresh starting line. I don't care if we were successful yesterday. I don't care if we served everybody yesterday. I'm glad we did. Let me be honest. I cared a lot yesterday and it mattered so much. But that is done now. It's a book that's been written. It's on the shelf. It's volumized. It's there. It's pretty. We can access it. We can review it. But there's nothing I can do about it now. And so if that's true, what are we doing for tomorrow? What are we doing for today? If you don't know, we're already behind because yesterday we knew the assignment. Yesterday we knew what we were up to. And that's really where a lot of my coaching, like transitional stuff, has come in, because I've had the teachers who loved being teachers until they didn't. I've had the mayor who was in the role twice and can't be there anymore. Now what? Man, the data was there. I won and then I won. The constituent said, stay. I liked what you did the last time. Go again. And then the data shifted. So now let's document what we loved about the job we just did. Let's act to make sure we get to continue those tasks. Let's track our applications. Let's adjust our approach. Oh, you got the job? Great. Let's document the task required for this job. Let's act on those tasks. Let's track what's working and what's not, and let's adjust. Are you with me? Does it make sense? It seems so silly when we just break it down this way, but guys, just watch your outcomes. Watch how you, not just the outcomes, but your feelings on the outcomes, right? It's not just about the hard numbers. It's not just about the money. It's not just about the time. How do you feel at the end? I'm going to be honest. I was really frustrated with one of my customers this week. I had been trying to work with them to get something accomplished, and their timing, my timing, it was just off. And it wasn't just them. It wasn't. I could have shown up and just been like, we're doing this. I know where you are. I know where you stay. We're doing this. I could have been more aggressive in my communication and said, do this or else. I didn't. However, I still had to get the work done. We had to get the work done. I showed up and I was surprised with a live event. I got to go live on the radio with my client, and they know who they are. They know I'm frustrated, not scared to tell you. Sliced, irritated the heck out of me. We're giving out cards to hotels to give some great discounts, and we were trying to get them printed in time, and it just wasn't working. Here's what I know. We talked about the problem. We acted on the problem immediately once we were together in person. We tracked where it went wrong, and we adjusted for next time. Not only so, but being able to tackle it together got me to be able to be on the radio talking about his great food, talking about the great things we're doing there. I got to meet really cool people who, I mean, they got a whole fangirl thing going on. John, the DJ at the radio station, is just one of a morning show, and he's just a great energy. Met his wife. It's so cool. And all of that came from the ripple of working with this customer, even if I was frustrated, even if we couldn't get it together. We still made impact. We were still able to get some data going. We were able to drive some data. That place was full when I left. And what I love about that is we're going to adjust our approach for the next time and move again. And it's going to work because the energy is there. The belief is there. The willingness to adjust is there. And sometimes, guys, that's all it takes, is just being willing to make the change. Your wants and desires and your capabilities and action are two different circles. 4, really. If you really think about your behaviors and where the data comes from and what the data is there for and why we're tracking, and if you really just Venn diagrammed even all of that, what is the purpose of this data? What is the reason we're putting in all of this extra work to track something that we say is important? Because once you remember why it's important, it's easy to get going. It's easy to refocus. When I used to run, I would run for grandma, or I would run for my best friend, or I would run for the boyfriend, or whoever it was in the crowd. I'd pick a person and I would run for them. Because if I ran for me, girl, please take a rest. You're tired. Go for it, girl. I love you enough to let you sit down. Truth is, I love myself too much to let myself sit down too. So what I did was kindly motivated myself. Kindly made it not about me. Kindly tricked myself into going, we're going to finish this no matter what. The motivation, the determination, the answers and the results, it all sits in different spots. We're not going to be able to get to our outcomes if we don't get motivated to do the work. And the work is not easy. Work is never just easy. It might be fun for a while. It might be exciting to get started. But as soon as you're on hold for 4 hours with a government to be able to get your business up, insured, started, where I've seen local business owners fighting with local government about having to repave the street in front of their business because it's their fault the traffic's there. Would you still be excited to be in your business if the city called you and said, hey, the 20 feet in front of your building, we're charging you for that pavement. That's all your fault. That part of the road is yours to legally required to fix it when it's broken. And so here's your bill. Could you imagine what you would feel in your motivation and determination if the city did that? Guys, this is a real life scenario. This is real business. This is real stuff. When you have a brick and mortar building, you can have a plumbing issue, a wiring issue, a fire. Commercial fires happen all the time. What do you do when it happens? Do you have a plan? What is that metaphorical fire in your personal life that would feel just as devastating if it happened while? Because the truth is, when I look at KPIs, when I look at data, when I look at those, even LinkedIn pages, I don't want to see a straight shot up. I don't want to see you climbing uphill both ways in the snow like grandma used to tell the tale of, right? I don't. I want to see rest, movement, action, assessment. If you're not taking time to think about your actions before you do the next one, how much time do you assess? If you're never slowing down, then I don't know if you're doing the right things. The data will tell you eventually. You might know early, but you know because you've assessed the data yourself. You may not have written it down, but there's something inside you that gives you that confidence. If you're working with like a coach, I would want to be clear on where your confidence is coming from, because sometimes that confidence is misplaced because that motivation, the determination doesn't always work in overlap with the execution and delivery. You want to be good at it, but you're not, right? How many times have we seen cooking shows where the contestants made it all the way on and they're not great? Or maybe they sang one really good song for the American Idol competition and they nailed it, but as soon as they got thrown the next song, you're like, whoa. That one thing looked really good all by itself. But when I saw the greater picture, I love a good sales team, right? In sales, you want to see top performers. You want to see metrics fly. But I want to see everything. If I see a maverick of a salesperson just outperforming the entire room, I want to know what they're doing. That one number looks really great. Talk to me. What are you doing? Some see success and just clap. Me, I want to assess it. Even the good stuff. How is this salesperson so successful? What are they doing different than others? And if they're the only one not cleaning, they're the only one who's not sharing customer time, if they're the first one to engage everybody who walks in and they don't take turns serving the customers and take turns doing the back work to make that store pretty, like we talked about, then I don't know how good the overall picture looks. Because I can go stand at the register and sell all day long too, right? I could go outsell everybody if I never had to file a piece of paper, send a contract, sit in a meeting. There are those who have positioned themselves one small favor at a time to not do the work some of the others are. And so are you weighing people equally? Are you measuring them equally? Especially in sales, because I see so much churn. We're not investing in them. We just get rid of them. And it's because we look at data points, but we don't read between the lines. What if the top performer has a special team that's been there 20 years and the bottom performer has a team that is also brand new? So their support staff isn't as effective. What would happen if I made you guys swap support staff for a month? Sally's a top performer in sales. Bob is struggling. Sally's team executes automatically. They're the Navy SEALs of sales. And then I say, hey, I just want you guys to stand up and switch seats for me. You have Sally's team now, and you get Bob's team now. Sally might be mad. Sally might be so frustrated because she's harnessed her time and energy to make her team what it is. Here's what I know as the leader of both teams. We're one. You're both on my team. You're both playing positions for me on my field. And if I can't ask you to go to the other side of the field for me, then we're not really in the position I thought we were. We're not really playing as a team like I thought we were. Now, when I put a star quarterback with the new receiving team, what they're getting is the quarterback's expertise and experience to coach them on what he expects to see. Not just what they're expected to do, but what he expects of them while they're doing that. Of course, they're supposed to catch a ball, but he expects them to watch his arms, his hands, his signals, his head, his tilt, his whatever. They have silent ways to speak. It's something that Sally and her team had already crafted. And now Sally needs to take that experience and share it with the new team, because the new salesperson doesn't know how to teach something they've never experienced. Now, on the other side, those receivers are going to tell that new quarterback, bro, get me the ball. Bro, eye contact. I need to know I'm the one it's going to. Send me a signal, drop your elbow, do something. Communicate with me if you need my support. And that's the value, right? You get it from both sides. And if you can do it in a way that's encouraging and beneficial and kind, knowing that the overall goal is the same. I was listening to that extreme accountability book, the Navy SEALs, right? That's the same kind of analogy they had in the book, where they were both on the same mission, in the same space, in the same city, facing the same enemies, different squads, different buildings. And they failed to work together. They were working separately when they could have been working together. And so when I see top performers and low performers, that's the first thing I do, is put them together. Tell me what I'm missing, because tell me what the other one has you don't. I know that's a teacher, and so I want to share this little moment with you. I love education. And when my son was about 6 or 7, during summer, I would always make him do the math sheets that we did, like the timed math sheets. Some days I'd time them, some days I would just let him do them. But he would get them done and go play. He knew as soon as he got his math done, he was done, he could go. So he was trained to get in, get it done. He had been practicing. When I was babysitting my godchildren, Mackenzie and Joseph, I had them join him. And Mackenzie was fine. She was a year older, so it was fun for her. She had already been doing this for a few years in school. She just knocked it out as well. But little Joseph, man, he wasn't excited about math. He was already not excited about this one moment. And so when he's watching these bigger kids who he wants to emulate, who he wants to be like, especially my son Nathan, who was more athletic and really a bigger kid than him. Joseph was a little chicken wing, is what I called him. He just wanted to be like my son. And when my son finished first, Joseph got really emotional. And I asked him, what's going on, bud? And he said, Nathan has a magic pencil. And I just thought to myself, and I still do to this day, when I'm training new teams, when I'm taking somebody who's really good at sales and putting them with somebody who's not, I remember that feeling, watching Joseph's face, really believe there was magic hidden in that pencil that he just couldn't access, that there was something special the other person had that he didn't have, which held him back. And guys, if we could use our Venn diagrams of just human potential and kindness and like knowledge sharing to bridge the gap, to take the top and the low performers and to bring them together, even if it means we lose a little traction on the front end, even if it means slowing down my top salesperson for a minute, it's worth it. There's a reason that I love that whole saying of like reach back, pull forward. It's that military mindset of once you're up on top of the hill, you turn around and you help the others get up with you, right? You put your hand down and help them stabilize as they climb. And if you want a great team, that should be how you run it. It shouldn't be allowing the low performers to stay low performers because the top performers will smooth it out. But take the top performers and bring them to the low performers and have them work together. We might lose a little bit on the front end, right? It might take a little bit of time and energy and some of that revenue away. But the outcomes, they're phenomenal. They're beneficial and they build over time. That is all I did in my store that's different than others is I held one person accountable to start. I said, this is your task. Your job is this KPI. That is all I want you to worry about today. And once I saw that they figured that out and they could do it with their hands tied behind their back, I said, okay, here's the next one. Now I need you to focus on this and this. Every time you say this, I want you to say this. And then I build again. And let's talk about the data. Look at how you've grown. Look at how when we did this, this happened. Look at how to read what we're doing. Look at the things that don't 100% correlate without understanding how, but really learn how to understand what you're reading without reading it all, right? And that's what I did for the first one. I taught them to read data. I taught them to understand the data. And then I taught them, because they knew it and they could assess it and they could read it on their own, now I want you to teach it. Because if you thoroughly understand it, you can explain it to somebody else. And once you partner those who understand it with those who don't and give them time, because I tried to teach it. It's not that I'm not training these people. There's a method. There's a whole program. And I'm not the only one. There's a whole academy for this. However, people learn in different ways. I like to doodle while you talk to me. If you want me to listen, I'm better listening than by not looking at you. It's just what it is. And so if my team learns differently than I'm teaching, let me put them with the right person. If I know this salesperson's really good at explaining it to the customers and getting them to say yes, why in the hell wouldn't I partner them with the other salesperson who needs to learn how to explain it so thoroughly? Why would I hold them back based on my inability to communicate in the way they got it? Why wouldn't I give them a better chance? So yes, I could hide under the top performers and go, hey, we're hitting the grade and yay. Or I could say, no, we're not going to settle. Let me get my top performer with my low performer. And now everybody's a top performer in my store. And I don't mean that facetiously. When I look at some of those KPIs, I mean, we're neck and neck. They are right behind the manager, right there. I am the racehorse. I try to set the stage, right? I try to get the race going. I'm the bunny. But they chase each other and they're always vying for first and they're doing it for fun. And they're excited and they share. And if they don't, the data will tell me, because the way we know it's fair is that everybody's cleaning, everybody's doing a to-do list, everybody's got something beyond just the one thing that earns them income, right? And so I hope this is resonating with you guys. I feel like I could talk on this one for hours. I so love the metrics side of things and how it actually works. But if you're going to settle for your averages, guys, determine how you're going to do that. Because like I said, you could hide the low performers, keep those top performers top performing, or you can use that law of averages to bring them together, right? Slow down the process a little bit, take them both out of their element a little bit, maybe swap teams a lot of it and see what happens. Because a Navy SEAL should be a Navy SEAL alone or with his pack, their pack, her pack. I don't care who it is. A SEAL is a SEAL. No matter where you drop them in the world, they're going to have that skill set. If they need to get the job done, they should be able to do it with any team because they have that leadership and the skill set to get the job done no matter where you send them. And I only speak to that not because I'm a SEAL, but I've been listening to the SEAL in the book, right? Extreme Accountability. You should check it out. It's a little dry for those who don't like military delivery, but color. You can color and listen. I do think though that the important aspect of it is if you're good, you should be able to do it from anywhere. If you're good, you should be able to do it with any team. And if your team isn't good without the team they have, you're already going to fail. You're already set up for a disaster. We're just waiting for the earthquake. Because as soon as Sally retires, as soon as her team says, oh, Sally's gone, I'm not here. If Sally's not working here, I don't want to work with the new salespeople. They don't know what they're doing. You've just lost everybody. And I've seen it. I've been hired to come in and like gap fill for Sally because she left without notice. And now here we are. I need you to help. We don't even know what she did. We don't know what made her successful. We never asked. We just let her do her thing. Could you imagine building your dream, your life on I don't knows and I can't do this without them? It's a scary place to be, guys. So when you look at your data, ask yourself, how much of this am I doing? How much of this is naturally occurring? How much of this is based on teamwork? And then ask yourself how you feel about those things and what you could do to improve them, whether it's be a better teammate, help the underperformers because you know you see what they don't. If if you can hear the murmurs in the break room about so-and-so not doing her job well, not doing their job well. Oh, if Bob would just stop doing this, he'd be so much. Tell Bob, get a meeting together, stop gossiping and get to work. Because that's the thing that frustrates me the most, guys, is when employees or teams or coaching clients, when I come in to do an assessment on leadership and they're just complaining about each other. I'm like, okay, well, have you talked to Bob? And they don't. Have you asked Sally what makes her successful? And they haven't. You got to read between the metrics. And if you can't read, you better get a friend. Ask the ones who are reading those metrics and making something of them to assess with you. I'm always here. I'm going to do the pitchy thing now, right? So, guys, if you're in your life coaching moment, I can help with this. I can assess your data, your career, your confidence, your mindset, your leadership skills, what you're good at, what you should be harnessing. Give yourself some confidence, right? A lot of the time we have imposter syndrome. We think we're good at something. We've maybe been able to tackle it before, but we're not sure we're ready to lead on this concept. That's okay. Let's find out what's holding you back. I've taken nothing into something. I have built businesses from zero to fruition. There are background screening companies out there right now with their name on them that I helped build logos for, and I ran and I built the compliance programs for, and all of the things. I left there and they're still going. And that's something we can help with, right? The other thing is your business. Guys, I am seeing so many people who in person, in real life these days, who don't have a LinkedIn for their business. If you are in business and you're not taking advantage of LinkedIn, but you're on other social platforms, I think you're doing it wrong. I'm just going to say I don't even need to see the data. And the reason I don't need to see the data is because intentional buyers and actors and business people and networkers and people who want to grow are on LinkedIn. Facebook, I know you're listening. YouTube, I know you're there. I'm sorry if it's offensive, but I see so much more action on LinkedIn because of that. You have business professionals moving with intention there. You don't just have people who are watching to watch. They're not just bored at home. They're not the ones sitting on the couch who never want to leave the couch, who are excited to be on the couch. And I'm not mad at them if that's their dream. But if you're only on Facebook where those people also live, and there's some people who waste time there intentionally, and you're not on LinkedIn talking about what you're doing, I think you're wasting it. So if you need your team to act, if you just want your team on LinkedIn to see what can be possible, just a LinkedIn premium subscription can give you tons of opportunity to learn and train and develop your skill sets. reach out. I'm doing the coaching. You can read. I'm not going to pitch it there. But the last thing I am going to ask before we boogie on out of here for today is for you to go and follow my YouTube channel. I am trying to build my subscribers. I would love to get to a point where I monetize that platform. It would be really cool. But also because LinkedIn gets glitchy on live streaming. It's just what it is. They're still working on themselves, and I love them for that. I am never going to be mad at the opportunities those guys have given me, and I will not complain about free ever. So guys, if you need any help, please reach out to me. Otherwise though, I hope you take some of this away. I hope something resonated. If something did, please leave it in the comments. Let me know what it was. I would love to be able to share that on. But make sure you're reading between your metrics. Read the fine print of your life, guys. Figure out what's happening in between those spikes. Figure out what that rest is. It rest? It's allowed to be rest. But as long as you're assessing your data, not just the wins, not just the loud stuff, you're going to go far. And if you need some help, reach out, whether it's me, another coach, a consultant, YouTube University, whatever it is. Just make sure you're assessing and you're doing it often. Use that data. Document, act, track, and adjust. See you next time.
Creeps through my window pane. Dreams of stars, now a faint refrain. Coffee brews and thoughts collide in this early morning ride. Wake up world, let's start the day. Insight flows in a bright array. Questions dance like morning dew. In this space, it's me and you. Coffee chats with Melissa.